Pause. Take a break. Reflect on life. Your moment of greatness starts now.
In this episode, we will learn the process of self-healing, changing our story, and reauthoring our lives. We'll be learning this from a Harvard graduate, licensed clinical psychologist, and the founder of Life-Centered Therapy. Welcome to the show, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure being here, and it's wonderful to be in your lovely, radiant energy. So I'm happy.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been just super delighted to be speaking with you. And that's why I'm all smiles right now because what you do provides solution to a lot of people as is, psychologists and also therapists, I would say. And the book you've written, The 1 Hour Miracle, it helps a lot of people to come out of that dark phase of their lives. And so I'm very happy to be speaking with you because I know a lot of people out there are going to benefit from this soulful conversation. So yeah, I would just love us to go straight to your book already. Like when I saw the title, I was like, okay, 1 Hour Miracle. Is that really true? So I would love you to, tell us what inspired you to write this book and why did you title it 1 Hour Miracle? Are we going to get our miracles in 1 hour? Will I be able to heal all my traumas and pains and suffering under 1 hour?
Well, you asked me a bunch of different questions. So, what inspired me to do it is my own story, inspired me to do it. So, I had a dream, and in this dream, I was racing around trying to take care of so many people and I couldn't do it eventually and I collapsed and I woke up in my bedroom and I heard this enormous noise out in the hallway and I walked out into the hallway and there was this two-story lion coming up the stairs and it was growling and roaring and pawing and I thought it was going to rip me to shreds and I couldn't get around the line. I thought I could go and run it down and race out the window, but I thought if I crashed out the window, I'd probably die that way. So, and then this voice came to me from the bedroom. This booming voice said, like, if you match the emotions of the lion, everything will be okay. So it's growling and pawing and everything, and I start doing it back. And then I'm faking it. But then in one moment, I'm fully experiencing what it's like being this lion. And the second that happens, we're both in my backyard, and this two-story lion is there, like sitting on its haunches like a golden retriever puppy dog with its face facing up into the sun. And I'm saying, this is so cool. I have a lion in my backyard. So I learned something there. I learned that, like, I wasn't really living a life true to myself because I was so racing around trying to take care of everybody else. And I had my own work to do, that I wanted to go out on my own because I was already realizing some things. And I came to this realization that the thing you need to do if you want to heal is fully face and experience the thing that you're most afraid to face until it's almost like you become it while you're bearing witness to it. And if you can do that, everything transforms. And if I was going to give you, and that was my first story, then that led me to a lot of very unusual experiences. And the last of those experiences, I will tell you very briefly, was I was with a friend and she had gone on spiritual retreat and she had hurt herself the day before we got to a place called the Self Realization Fellowship. This is the dream happened, I think, in 1990, and this happened in 1991. And I was walking around this place with her, and she had hurt her ankle really badly. It was swollen and discolored, and she was in really awful pain. And we get to these two benches, and she says, "You're going to have to carry me out of here. I can't walk another step." So the benches are parallel, and I helped her onto the end of one bench, and then I had to walk around because I wanted to be able to elevate her leg, and I had to walk through some bushes to get to the other side of the other bench. And the second I sat down, I was flooded with light. And I knew it wasn't the sun because the sun was off to the left, and this was directly over my head. And I could experience the light coming into me. And I said to Roshan, who's my friend, her leg was elevated at this point, and I just started experiencing the light going through my hands to her ankle. And I do that for a few seconds, and she said, "You know, I can read auras, don't you?" And I said, Roshan, I'm a nice Jewish boy from Boston. This was like, 31 years ago, 32 years ago. I said, what do I know from auras? And she said, are you aware that there's pure light coming down through the crown of your head into the center of your chest and out your hands to my ankle? And I said, I can't see it the way you're talking about, but I know it's true. And she said, you sat in this very funny place, which is called the seat of the healer. And very few people sit there. So we're doing this, and then we look down, and there's no swelling, there's no discoloration. She gets up and she starts to walk with no pain. And I sort of say to myself, we're not in Kansas anymore. And I came to a realization then also, which is if you could meet, like, if there's some kind of like dense energy and you could meet it exactly, right?
mm, mm,
And then sort of like a noise canceling machine. So if you have an engine and you hit exactly the right noise, you can cancel that out and then you can raise the vibration of it. And if you could do that, you could really have healing. And that became over 30 years ago the foundation of what I do. And so what I do is very simple to describe, which is there's only one reason people suffer. I don't care what the symptoms are. You can have chronic pain or chronic fatigue or depression or blocked mindsets or bad relationships or alienation. But if you're suffering, there's only one reason, which is something can't be handled. And all healing is mastering what can't be handled. And it's very simple to say how you do that, which is when something can't be handled in that moment, a discomfort is born. So, and then unconsciously, we live out that discomfort. We no longer are being Toby or Andy in this present moment, but we're stuck someplace, unconsciously living out the story, an echo of that discomfort. And the second you can choose to bring all your attention to it and fully experience it like it's a living being that's come to share something and saying, I'm here with you and I accept you and I bear witness to you and I hold you. And I'm not you, I'm just experiencing you. I'm the one experiencing it. It goes back into its pure form and the discomfort goes away. And in that moment, something shifts and you're freer. And if you do that long enough, either the symptoms go away no matter how bad they are, or your anxiety about them goes away to such a degree that you might have a problem, but you're not suffering anymore because you can say yes to everything and then you're free. And I would call that a miracle, even though that was not the name. The reason how we got the name of the book was we had
mm,
an agent and everyone said no one would buy our book. And no agent would ever take it because like it was too weird and we had too small a platform. So we decided we would
mm,
go for one agent who had the most bestsellers in Hay House, which was the place we most wanted to get our book sold. He said, well, no one will take our book. So he writes us a nice form letter and he says, don't ever expect to hear from me again on a Friday. And on Monday, he calls us up. So we said, well, maybe he's throwing us a bone. He's going to suggest somebody. He says, like, um, I want to be your agent. I've been an agent in psychology for 50 years and on the cutting edge of it and healing for 15 years, and no one's doing what you're doing. And he said, I know we should call your book The 1 Hour Miracle. We did not actually love that title. Um, but he said, well, when you get to the publisher, they can change the title if you really don't like it. And when we went to the publisher,
mm,
who was going along with everything, we said, we have some questions about the title. We think people might get reactive to it. And she said, we love the title. We want to keep the
wow.
title. And this was our
Yeah.
first book. So we were kind of neophytes. So we kept the title. But as long as you know, a miracle is whenever you get to be more free. And we've seen
Mm,
things like our miracles. I've seen in 20 minutes, we had a session in 20 minutes. This is not typical, but it's not that unusual, where a woman who had horrific chronic neck pain that had been unresponsive to treatment, a major depression that had been unresponsive to treatment, fear of crowds and fear of public speaking and alienation. And she'd worked on all of them for years and they all went away in 20 minutes. All in one 20-minute thing, it all went away. And it's an amazing story. It's a fun story. I can tell you if you like. So see things that are kind of miraculous like that. But I would say anytime you get freer of suffering and freer to be able to say yes to your life and yes to your particular contribution to life, and knowing it ultimately that, you know, we could say yes to everything, that's a miracle. So I'm not so unhappy with the title.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.
Yes, that's beautiful. As long as we can be able to say yes to life, or the ability to be able to say yes to life, is a miracle.
Yeah,
Yes, I love
yeah.
that. That's beautiful. And how are you able to then, change your story, turn your life around, re-author your life?
It's simple. I'll give you a simple example, okay? Let's suppose
Mhm,
you're in my office, a motorcycle backfires, right? And you have a panic
mhm,
attack right in my office. Well, it's not likely because
mhm.
the motorcycle backfired, right? But let's suppose you
Yeah.
were in a war 20 years earlier and bombs are going off near you and you can't handle it, right? So now
Mhm,
you're stuck there. And when that motorcycle backfires, which is an echo of what happened, you're stuck in a story. Like I'm a soldier and I'm going to die, right? Now, let's suppose I say to you, Toby, what do you feel in the body when you were having your panic attack? And you say, my heart's pounding fast. And I'm going to say something funny to you. I'm going to say, Toby, you're not having a panic attack. Someone whose name is heart pounding fast is having a panic attack. Your little toe is just fine, so it can't be you. So, what you're going to do
mhm,
is you're going to choose to bring all your attention to heart pounding fast. So much so that you're going to fully experience it to such a degree that you're going to say, I'm going to choose to become it, but I'm not it. In the same way that an actor would choose to become like a role in a play or a movie, right? So suddenly
mhm,
you're no
mhm.
longer it. You're saying, I'm here with you, but I'm not you. And then no matter what you do, if you're kinesthetic, you'll end up on my floor screaming, bombs are going off. And if you're visual, you'll start saying, oh my God, I'm seeing a story, right? Or
Mm.
if you're auditory, it'll be like you're reading a novel. You say, I know what's happening. Bombs are going off around me, except for one thing, which is you're no longer
What's that?
identified with the character. You're identified with the
Mm,
one who's bearing witness to that character and saying, I accept you and I'm here with you and I'm holding you and I'm not you. And as soon as that happens, something miraculous happens, which is heart pounding fast, which is a very dense energy, goes back into its pure form, which is energy. And suddenly your heart isn't pounding fast anymore. And if that's the
mm,
only reason you're having panic attacks, the next time that motorcycle backfires, you'll say, this is reminding me. I am remembering what happened to me. But it's not that that part has been dismembered and split off anymore. Now I'm the one who's aware of the story. I'm not the one living it out. And that's what I mean when I
mm.
say you can change your whole story and reauthor your life if you anytime you're anxious or you're judgmental or anything, you say there's a sensation there and I can find it and I can be with it. And suddenly you are now the author, not the character. And that's what I mean when you say you literally can reauthor your life. You can change the story.
Yes.
And I've seen
Mm,
things that just from doing that. So if all I want to say to your audience is every time you're suffering about anything, I don't care what it
mm.
is, right? Could be something physical like chronic pain, or emotional like depression, or mental like you're stuck and you have a dream and it's not happening, or bad relationships or alienation. Find the
mm,
sensation. There'll always be a discomfort, and say, I will choose to experience you. And you're going to tell your story. You can literally speak it out loud, and then you'll say, wow, I can bear witness to that, but it's not who I am. And interestingly, every discomfort you have, I would say, is a living being who has a life of their own, who's come to share a story with you. So when you have a headache, before taking an aspirin, you can say, "Oh, it's my headache." No, it's not your headache. Its name is headache. Your name is Toby. You say, "Headache, what have you come to share about headaches?" Watch what happens. Worlds open up. That's what I mean when I say you can change your story. You can reauthor your life. That simple.
mm. That's simple but very deep.
Yeah.
Like we are individuals just experiencing different things that happen to us
Yeah.
basically, or different things that happen around
Yeah.
us, and we shouldn't. I think is this also. I would just would love to know: is this similar to the saying of you're not a victim, but you're a victor? For example, you're not a victim of your story, but you are the victor of your story. For example, is that the same thing or same psychology
It's the
behind that?
same idea, except that I wouldn't put it in terms of victims or victors, right? Although clearly you'll
Mm,
always be a victim on one level while you're stuck in it, right? But I would say
mm,
this it's really about a kind of acceptance, to say this is what happened, but it's not who I am. So it's not like you're
mm,
winning over something, right? It's like you're saying I can be with something, as opposed to just
mm,
unconsciously living it out. And if you want to call that being a victor, then I'd say that's fine. I'll tell you the thing about being a victim, though. We are victims. I mean, stuff happens to us, right? And we're victims.
yeah,
We're
true.
perpetrators, we're
Yeah.
victims. And it's true. And we have to start with people where they are, which is that they are suffering. But I will tell you the amazing thing, everything you're suffering is just your edge, right? Because if you could handle it, you wouldn't be suffering. So everything that is something that you couldn't handle has come to share an amazing lesson with you, right?
Mm,
And when you can do it
yeah.
ultimately, I mean, if you think about it, we have one exemplar of it, right? If you think about Jesus, right? Right before he dies, right? He's an exemplar of being human. He says, like, why hast thou forsaken me? Right? I've been a good son. Why have you forsaken me? So he's, in a sense, you could say there's something he couldn't say yes to. But at the end, when he's being crucified, he says, I give my soul over to you. He's no longer anxious. He's no longer judgmental. He's no longer compulsively saying, why are you doing this to me? He says, I can accept it all, even death, because it's not who I am. I'm just the experiencer. And so that's what I would say is then you're really a victor, because you don't have to be a victor
Yeah.
over anything. You're just with. You're just, it's just like
Mm,
I'm with you, right?
mm,
So,
mm.
and we're everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's very insightful. Yeah, I mean, whenever we experience anything, suffering or pain, it's just an experience coming to life that we are opportune or privileged to witness. And once that comes, we allow it to be, and then we ask it, okay, what do you want to teach me? What lesson? What's your purpose
Yes,
actually? And hopefully that experience or that situation is going to move us forward in life. It's going to help us, even move a step or multiple steps, ahead of our destiny, or move closer to our goals in life also.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes we, like you said rightfully, life happens, lot of challenges. You write about this in your book also, the 1 Hour Miracle. Life is a challenge, and you talk about this also in this, the creation myths, for example, and the evolution of life. Yeah, but sometimes we go through traumas and pains, and we just some people get trapped there because they don't have these tools that they need to heal themselves to move
Mm.
forward. And that's why I really want you to educate us on this. Like, what do we need to do when life happens and when we experience pains and trauma? What can we do to heal ourselves? What can we do to come out of that situation What can we do in order to become, you know, even more of ourselves and learn from that experience also?
What I all I can say again is pain is not optional, but suffering kind of
Mm,
is. What does suffering mean? It
mm,
means having pain about your pain. It's being judgmental or anxious or compulsive or whatever. So if I hit you in the stomach, right, you're going to feel pain, but it doesn't mean you have to be judgmental
mm,
about it, so to speak. So what I'd
mm,
say is when you're suffering, I think trauma and suffering are the same thing. It just means there's something that couldn't be handled. When you can't
mm,
handle something, in that moment, a living being is born. I think we're all multiples. We're like a big, big community. And some of them are the living beings of someone who was born in a moment that something couldn't be handled. And then we identify with it. And I would say ultimately, the way to be free is whenever there's something, whenever you have any anxiety or being judgmental or whatever, scan your body, you'll find a discomfort. Say, I'm going to choose to fully experience you. Now you're being mindful of a living being. It's no longer you, it's just something being experienced. And then you just say out loud whatever comes to you. And I guarantee you, you'll start to hear its story. And when you do that, you gain perspective and you say, okay, that was something being experienced, but it's not who I am. Until finally you say, there is no I am. Not even I am Toby or Andy. You could say, I'm
mm,
experiencing Tobying or I'm experiencing Andy, right? Andying. But
mm,
I'm just the one, I'm just a verb experiencing, right? And when you have no
mm,
identity at
mm,
all, then you're free. You can be everything. And you can like whatever life is inviting you into. And then each of us,
mm,
we each have our own roles. It's like cells, there we have
mm,
like trillions of cells, right? On the surface, every one of
yeah.
them is different.
Mm,
They're all differentiated. They
mm,
all have their own role to play. But underneath it,
mm,
they're all the same. In a cell, it's called DNA. So if you can become the template, you can take one cell and create the whole universe. It's called Dolly the sheep. It's called cloning, right? Well, the
yeah.
mystical idea is we are mystical cells in a living being who's, a living body of a being called life. And each of us has our own differentiated role to play. And each of us is everything that has ever happened, is happening, and potentially could happen. That's called soul.
Mm,
And then if we can really know that, then we get to play out our particular unique role. But with no, like you just say, I can do whatever life is inviting me into, I can say yes. If it's inviting me to be a billionaire, I can be fine. If it's inviting me to be like, a street person and speak wisdom to somebody walking by, fine. It doesn't matter. If it's inviting me to be crucified, I can be crucified. It's a good day to die. It's like, because you no longer are judgmental about it, right?
mm,
So
mm,
ego gets
mm,
out of the way, or, we no longer just look for what is ego enhancing. We just look to say, what's life inviting me into? What's it asking me? What part am I being asked to play? You know? And if I'm, Christ, I'm being asked to be crucified so that, I can open people's hearts. But somebody else be asked to do something else. And we all say, well, what am I? I'm invited to like help people heal. You're invited to be a great
yeah.
podcast host. I mean, it's like
Mm,
whenever you say, oh gosh,
yeah.
that's so. And you say,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
so alive because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's purpose, right? Once you feel alive doing what you're meant to
Yeah,
do or what you're called to do, yeah, you feel
yeah,
alive. Yeah. Yeah. That's purpose. Yes. So as long as we could stop being judgmental, pain and suffering, no, sorry, suffering and trauma fades away basically. As long as we are not judgmental about what we cannot control, then we're able to get rid of that
right.
trauma.
The one thing we have choice about is when we're feeling anxious, do we find that aspect of being that's experiencing it, which is going to be a discomfort? The one message I would give your audience is whenever you're anxious or judgmental or whatever, there'll be a body sensation. Find it and bring your attention there And let's say you're feeling anxious. You say, what have you come to share about anxiety? Where are you beginning? What's happening to you? And suddenly you're with it. And every time you have a discomfort, it's as a living being. It's not your discomfort any more than your children are your children. No, they have their own name. You might be your, mother's son, but you're also Toby, independent. I mean, like, you have your own living. And like, so we're going to ask you. And like, if you said, oh, I know what, sick to stomach is saying, I'd say, like, sick to stomach is right here, Toby. So why don't you just pay attention to it? Because it doesn't really think you know shit. Pardon my saying so. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. I understand.
yeah.
Wait, Andrew, all what you've discussed, or I said eclared. Oh man, I'm mixing my German words into my English. All what you've described right now, or explained to us right now, um, is that what is called the life-centered
Yes.
therapy, or is there more to it?
There's much,
Ah,
much
okay,
more to it,
okay.
but that's the basics of it, right? So,
Mm,
like, let
mm,
me tell you what I mean. Um, give you the same example, right? Uh, we had that man who had the bombs go off, so he's having panic attacks. Now I'm going to give you a different story, okay? Same thing happens,
mm,
okay? Except this time I find out the problem isn't his reaction to loud sounds. His problem is betrayal, and I sort of like can find out, and that it's not that the sounds are the problem. They're a symptom of a deeper problem, and I can find out it's betrayal. So let's suppose I have him focus on I betrayed, let's suppose. And somehow that reaction to loud sound is folded into that. And I say, what happens in your
mm,
body? What happens in the body when you focus on I betrayed a trust? And suddenly you say, like, my throat's closing up and I have a terrible pain in my left foot. Okay, let's suppose. And I say, okay, someone's here and their name is throat closing up and pain in left foot. Bring all your attention there. And suddenly this you say, this is really weird. I'm in this uniform and I think I'm in World War I and I'm leading a group of soldiers this time and I'm not paying enough attention because I get distracted, right? And I walk them into an ambush. And like suddenly like, and there's been hand grenades are going off and bombs are falling out of the sky because I walked them into an open field and they've been like they were waiting for this to happen and I'm watching my men get wounded and everything, and I'm feeling so terrible
mm,
about myself as a leader that I take out my pistol and I shoot myself in the foot because I want them
mm,
to think that something that wasn't my fault, right?
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm,
now let's suppose we can help that person make amends with those soldiers on a soul level. Now, I'm going to tell you, here's the interesting thing. They didn't just come in with reactions to loud sounds. They came in and they say, you know what? I have chronic foot pain because I dropped something on my foot, and doctors are saying I shouldn't be having the chronic foot pain anymore, but I still have it. And they say, every time I have the possibility of being a leader, I shoot myself in the foot. And they're literally telling you the story, right? You think they're talking
mm,
metaphorically. No, they literally shot themselves in the foot. And they have obsessive compulsive disorder. And they say, like, if I make a mistake, it's like the sky is going to fall. And they're literally telling you a story because the sky was falling, bombs were coming down, right? And they say, I have attention deficit disorder and I'm feeling really guilty. Like if I don't pay attention, something bad's going to happen. But I get distracted too easily. And if the only reason for those things was that one story, all those things would go away in 20 minutes because
mm,
they were an
mm,
invitation to remembering something, and life gives you its best invitation, and it's going to give you an invitation you don't like, but really you're just getting an echo of a story. So what I want to do with everybody is I want to find out what their real intention is. Is it the loud sounds or is it betrayal? And I have to find out where it
mm,
originated because everything else is going to be an echo. And I have to find out, does that
mm,
being need anything other than just sharing its story? And it might need all kinds of things. It might need a spiritual practice, or it might need, you know, what's called emotional freedom technique, which is a kind of an acupressure intervention, or it might need, there's I know like 100 different possible things, and it's often my clients know. They say, this is really weird. I know what this person needs, and they do. So,
mm,
you know, it begins to expand out in jazz riffs off of a basic simple idea that
mm,
you have to find out what the real problem is, as opposed to sometimes
mm.
the thing you think is the problem is a symptom of something else. And you have to find out where it
Yeah.
originated and you have to find out what that being needs. And then if you do all those things, you know how to do all those things, then you know how to heal trauma at least. And then there are other things we do in life other than healing trauma, like mastering things and becoming more mature and being totally non-reactive to everything and all kinds of other stuff. But
Mm,
if you want to heal your trauma,
mm.
it's just jazz riffs off of a simple idea. So that's what I'd say.
Yes, yes. Wow. So that means anyone who's experiencing, for example, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and all of that could also make use of this, processes in order to get a solution out of the situation they're
Yeah.
in. Also.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if you're depressed, for example, well, why is someone depressed? They're either reliving a story or they're reliving a way to make sure that they never will experience the story again, even if the way they can protect themselves from doing it is going into a major depression. Like, one of the stories in our
Mm,
book is a young man who came in with a major depression, and I found out it was his way of protecting himself from experiencing something worse, which he thought was a crazy idea. So I said, "Well, why don't you experience what
mm,
happens in the body when you allow major depression?" And he did, and he said it felt like heavy wet oatmeal. So I said, "Fine, become heavy wet oatmeal." And I knew it began. We found out using a process of accessing his deepest wisdom that it started in this lifetime when he was, between ages 0 and 5. And he drops into heavy wet oatmeal and he says, "Oh, I know what's going on." And he had heard something about this story, but he never found it himself. And he said, "I'm
mm,
in my basement and I'm making a special present. It's Christmas time. I'm making a special present for my father, and he's not receiving my present. And he pushes me away and he walks out the door, and I'm chasing him, and he walks off and drives away." And he says at that point, he says, "I don't care." So he couldn't feel all of the pain of that. So he numbed himself. What's a depression? It's numbing yourself. So I said, "Your depression
mm,
wasn't the problem. It was the thing you asked to be there for a 3-year-old boy who couldn't handle something. And the best choice you could make would be to make yourself numb. So you can make a different choice now. We can go back and say, that heavy wet oatmeal is a 3-year-old boy who is calling in a numbness. So we'll just take it outside of you and channel it light and say, thank you very much. You saved my life because I couldn't handle this. But, I can heal the 3-year-old boy and I can dissolve the protection," which he did.
mm,
So he says, "Well,
mm,
how come I get depressed now? Nothing happened. There's no precipitant. They thought it was biological." I said, "I don't know. Recreate heavy wet oatmeal and ask it." He recreates heavy wet oatmeal. He said, "I know exactly what happened. You know what happened?
mm.
I'll tell
What?
you." He was the head of an improv troupe, and he went to his father and said, "We have our grand opening, this week, Dad. Can you come?" And his father, who is remarried, said, "I'm so sorry." He lets me use his name. His name's Nate. He said, "I'm sorry, Nate, but like I have these two." He was remarried. I have two toddlers, and we've said we're not going to go out to do anything while these kids are that young. And you know what he says? He says, "Dad, it's no problem. I don't care." Next day, he went into a major depression. There was no precipitant. It didn't even occur to him. He said, "Oh my God."
Mm,
He said, "Well, how come the year before that my father went to my opening?" He said, "So what happened then?" I said, "I don't know. Ask heavy wet oatmeal." He said, "Oh my God." He said, "I made a special present for my girlfriend, and I'm reliving it right now because he was doing it in the immediacy of it." He says, "I can see she's giving me a fake smile. It hadn't even registered on me." And I'm saying to myself, subliminally saying, "I don't care." And the next day, he went into a major depression that lasted for 3 months, and then he started to get out of it. And as soon as he changed this thing, he brought it outside and he changed it. I said, "Find who you really are underneath it that was you were protecting, that was you were hiding behind heavy wet oatmeal and has been hidden since you were, 3 years old," which is almost 20 years ago. He said, "I see this little boy and
mm,
he's dancing around. He has a golden halo and he's creative and he's fun." I said, "Why don't you just invite him out and become him?" And he says, "I feel great." And he saw his mother and he said, "I'm starving." He hadn't had no appetite. He said, "I want a double cheeseburger." And he went off and his depression went away right like that. And it didn't come back. So those things are 1 hour miracles. But I also had a woman who wanted to have a blood draw, and it took over a year and a half for her to get the blood draw. But believe me, there were like 50
mm,
layers to it. And so
mm.
sometimes one thing can be a doorway into like so many different stories. It's amazing. So that's what I do.
That's true. Once, yeah, that's beautiful. That's a miracle actually, and it's a blessing to be able to do this for people. And I believe from what I have heard so far, once we can get to the root cause of something, to the true root cause of a situation, then we'll be able to find our deliverance and find our
Yeah.
miracle. And as soon as we can find that, the soonest we could also get our 1 hour miracle.
Exactly. Exactly, Toby.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But Andrew, from your experience so far, do you think it's ever possible to avoid experiencing suffering or traumas?
I've never been, the Buddha or Jesus
Mm,
or Kuan Yin, so I can't say. I can say for most of us
mm,
human beings, there's going to be something that no matter how much we've done, we can't handle, or something will
mm,
trigger something that was in our past that's waiting for us to heal. So I would say for most of us, not. But, you know, certainly for me, I don't claim to be like a fully realized being. I keep working on myself for, I don't want to think how long, but for a long time. I still run into stuff where I get anxious or whatever. What I choose to do now is I choose to practice. There are certain things that they're like, it's sort of like, can you face your worst nightmares about yourself, the things you're most afraid to admit? And I just do that as an ongoing practice. Like there's some things that I really am afraid to admit about myself still. And I practice. And before I put myself in that place, I say I'm going to practice. So when it actually happens in life, I'll at least be a little bit prepared. So I think it's
yeah.
possible to choose to say, I'm going to be with a part of me that is so afraid or so afraid to admit something about myself or, get so anxious when I anticipate something. But at least I can choose to say, I can be with you. And if I can do it long enough,
Mm,
maybe when it comes up, I won't be quite as like terrorized. So that's
yes.
what I guess I say about
Wow, Andrew, I've learned a lot from you from this conversation already. Like, this is a blessing to speaking with you and to learning about. You said it's and it sounds so simple, but they are so deep. And if one could apply this, one will be able to get that 1 hour miracle. Hopefully. So for people out there, for example, who love to get this book, to read the book, and maybe reach out to you, what's the best way to do this?
The best way to get the book is probably through Amazon. You can just go and buy a copy of The 1 Hour Miracle. And if you like it and you write a review, I will be eternally grateful. But, like, tell your
Mm,
friends, tell your enemies, they probably even more, tell everybody. But yeah, I mean, or our website is lifecenteredtherapy.com. And, you can reach all of us there, including a lot of people that we've certified to do the work because there are amazing people who've
mm,
studied this with us. And, they're all remarkable,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you can reach us
Mm.
there. You can reach me there. You can reach all of us there. That's the simple way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to place the link to your website, lifecenter.com, in the show note of this episode. So I encourage everyone out there to just click on the link. Get the book also on Amazon. It's a good book to read, or just a book to have in case there's any suffering or anything that you are experiencing. You could bring it out and use as a toolbox
And,
basically to.
and people like reading the book. It's a fun book to read. People tell me that. They say it's really like a
Mm,
joy to read because, it's like reading novels. It's like, all these people with amazing stories. So we give you sort of like a framework for understanding life, maybe in a different way, that it's a living being and that it's
mm,
growing through us. So we're in this like wonderful union with life. And then, well, when we can't accept life, then we're traumatized. And then it tells you how to do it for yourself if you want. And like, I don't like doing it for myself even, but I do when no one else is around. But if anyone can sit with me, I'm very happy. And we have a lot of people we've trained and they're really, really good. But you can do it yourself if all you do is find the discomfort and say, I want to hear your story. World's,
mm.
it makes me want to cry. So like,
Yeah.
and if people
Finding
get that, then I'll
discomfort.
be happy, you know? Yeah. Just
Yeah.
say, what have you come to
Yes.
share with me, headache? Watch what happens. You'll be a better therapist.
Mm,
It's better than talking about it, right? Talking about it is trickle down therapy. But if you find the sensation and say, that's bottom up therapy or inside out therapy. And it's
mm.
amazing. I can
It's
tell you, having done
amazing.
it for 30 years. Yeah.
Wow. And that's been doing wonders. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. This is awesome speaking with you, and it's very eye opening for me also. Thank you so much, Andrew, for this super conversation. I really appreciate it. And I thank you. Just thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's been my pleasure too. I mean, I told you, it's like you just carry this like generosity and and vibrancy and aliveness. So I think your audience is lucky they have you, and like if this serves them, then I'm very joyful because that's all I'm here for. So thank you.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye. Bye.